Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Michi Makes Up. Today's video is going to be on my favorite Sonia G brushes. And while there are other Fude brands that I have brushes I really enjoy from them, I won't be covering those today. This isn't a, favorite brushes across all Fude brands that I have. It's just going to be focused on Sonia G. I hope to do other ones in the future. Just depends how much you guys like this type of video. I do have a number of Rephr brushes and Koito brushes as well. So we could also do kind of like a cross-brand favorite of favorites, so to speak. But today we'll focus on only Sonia G, and I will cover my favorites both for her eye brushes and face brushes. So starting with eye brushes, my go-to eye brush from Sonia G is going to be the Mini Booster from her Sky Eye Set. And this little brush is very mighty. Her Sky Eye Set in general was designed more for people with hooded lids. And while you don't need to have hooded lids to really enjoy the set, I think people with hooded lids have found some of these shapes to be some of the best shapes for what they need. And the Mini Booster is perfect for working that outer corner. And you can see I don't have a lot of pigment. I'm actually using the shade here, but you can see how it just places it where you need it to be. And if you need more pigment, you can definitely go back and do that. And then afterwards, these two are both my favorites because they tend to be some of the most used eye brushes. To me, they're very interchangeable. So if you're looking or if you're watching this video to get some inspiration on which brushes to pick up, which sets to pick up, I would say it's very interchangeable between these two. So this is the Classic Crease, also from the Sky Eye Set, and this is the Blender Pro. And the difference between the two is this is fluffier, it covers more area, and then this is a little bit smaller. It is meant for the crease, but depending on what you're trying to do, you could just use this for the crease as well. And actually, because we're talking about the Sky Set, since the Mini Booster is that, I will go in with the Classic Crease to diffuse that deeper shade into the crease. And it does an excellent job. It's very easy. The placement with the Mini Booster was exactly where I need it to be, and then going in with a appropriate brush to now diffuse it, I'm getting it right into that spot. So it gives me more definition immediately so, the difference between right eye versus the left. And here's the difference between the Mini Booster and the Classic Crease. You can see the size difference here. The Mini Booster is also more tightly packed, so there's less give. And this is truly, when you see more give like that, it's fluffier, it's more malleable, so it is made for blending and diffusing. Whereas this is meant to pick up just enough, a good amount of pigment, just enough pigment, and then deposit it in a concentrated manner onto wherever you place the brush. And just let me go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Moving on to the next most used eye brush is going to be her Builder Pro. This is what I would call kind of your quintessential eyeshadow brush shape. And the way that it sort of tapers here, because it can allow you, depending on the angle you hold it at, it can allow you to deposit just shade right here, or to diffuse just enough right here to get these more delicate, smaller areas. But if you just want to quickly place a good amount of pigment, you just flatly brush it on your lid like that. And it does very well with mattes, metallics. It does all right with like lid toppers. There's another brush I like to use for lid toppers, but this is overall kind of like an all-star brush because it's so versatile due to its shape and just how densely packed it is. It's gonna pick up a good amount of pigment depending on the pressure. When you go into a shadow and you want to get more, you certainly can do this, and that's going to give you a good amount of pigment. If you're looking for a lighter application, then I'm just going to turn this on the other side here. You can instead just brush it like that. So not as concentrated, but once you kind of wiggle it on the pen, you're going to get more. And it's going to then deposit more onto your lids. So that is the Builder Pro, and this is a brush I take with me whenever I travel. Unless I'm going for really, really light, then I do have another set I take instead, but this is a staple in my eyeshadow looks, eyeshadow creation tool. Following that is the Crease Pro. I love the Crease Pro. This is a brush I would pick up a backup, a spare of, without a second thought. I haven't gone around to it because every time I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna pick up some brushes from Sonia G or Rephr, whichever brand, a new set of brushes have come out from these brands, and I just gravitate towards the new ones because I could review it, I could try it. So this is still on my radar to pick up a spare of, and maybe in 2023's Lucky Bag, maybe I'll get a spare brush from the Lucky Bag. One can hope, right? So the Crease Pro is great for the crease, as the name implies. And what I like to use it for is, I don't have a good example here, but let's say, because you can use this matte bronzing brick from Victoria Beckham as eyeshadow, for this particular look, it's bronzy, brown, and let's say maybe I have, too much of a deeper pigment. I'm trying to blend out some seams in the look. Right here, maybe there's some seams. I don't like that. I want to blend it out. Just going into this, I can then diffuse, work on this particular area, and immediately you can see it just softened it up a little bit. So the look is a little bit more cleaned up, a little bit more seamless. That is what I love using this brush for. It covers a smaller area than the classic crease. And it is a crease brush, so you could use it to diffuse, just as you saw what I did earlier. And compared to the Blender Pro, it is also notably smaller. But because it's smaller, less fluffy, I find that it gives me more control. And so to do any kind of cleanup work, that's where I want the control to be. And it just works really well for that purpose. And that is why I would like a backup of this. There are other brush shapes when it comes to the classic crease and even the Builder that if you didn't have these two, you could make do with some other shapes. But I feel like this has just enough density and length to really be a great fallback brush when I need to do any kind of cleanup. My next fave, Sonia G eye brush, is also from the Sky Eye set. It's the Soft Shader. The Soft Shader is made up of undyed goat hair, so you could use it on creams and more emollient, I guess, shadows. What I like about it is it's more tapered. This brush is very dense. The closer you get to the base, the less give it has. And it's great for picking up also lid toppers. Now, because it's very tapered, you could just get right into the inner corner and then deposit that lid topper or maybe creamier eyeshadow. But because it picks up a good amount of pigment, I can use it just to deposit color like that. So this brush is very effective at its role in working with certain textures. All right, we're down to the last eye brush here that I love from Sonia G, or it's my favorite. It's the Rephr brush. The Rephr brush, when compared to all my other eye brush favorites from her, is the most versatile because it can be your crease brush. If you turn it at an angle, you get enough control from it, and it just covers that area you need it to. But it's also big enough and fluffy enough where you could use it to diffuse. Diffuse the inner corner further out, give you more area coverage, and just overall make your look a little bit smoother. It can also, because it's densely packed enough, take on whatever shadow you want and deposit on your lid, much like how I showed you with the Builder Pro. It's going to cover more area because it's bigger, but it can do also the crease work and buffing out shadow to a larger area in your outer V. It won't be as effective because it is much bigger at depositing shadow just right here, but if you needed to, you can make it work. So this is the most versatile brush, multifunctional brush that I have from Sonia G, and therefore that is also why it's a favorite from hers. Moving on to face brushes, when it comes to blush, she does have a number of brush that can do the job, but by far my most used Sonia G brush for blush is going to be from her Lotus set. This is the cheek brush. There is something incredibly soft about these her Lotus set brushes. So this is also from the Lotus set. They're made up of Psycho, which is a high-grade goat hair, natural hair, and it's this area here. It's small and soft. It allows me to very gently deposit pigment. If it's too bright, I can always turn it on to the side that has less pigment, so maybe even just off to the side here, and diffuse. And it just is a very pleasant experience because of how soft it is, but also that I don't have to be too concerned about placing too much pigment. It's just very forgiving, and that is why I prefer this brush over her Sky Face set. In her Sky Face set, she has the soft cheek brush and also the classic cheek. The classic cheek is also a really nice brush, and I've used the soft cheek numerous times as well, but it just doesn't replace the overall functionality of this and just how the pigment goes on. I've used the soft cheek definitely to diffuse really pigmented blush that I might have put on using this brush, but this one kind of does the job, for me at least, of both of these brushes, so that's why it's a favorite of mine. And I have here, this is from her Hinoki set. This has, in a short amount of time, become a favorite because of its versatility. It is also made up of Psycho goat hair. It's versatile because it's fluffy enough to really be used to warm up your complexion, and it covers enough area. When you move this brush across your face, you don't lose contact. If you're conscious about how you angle it, you can see it just glides right on, and it just is like a pro at moving along with the contours of your face. Not all brushes are made like that. The shape, the density of the brush just allows for that. It is also just beautifully pleasant to look at, and it is made with the Fude collector in mind, but it isn't so precious, at least for me, that I can't bring myself to use it. I have a couple of brushes that I just can't bring myself to use, and I'm still, I'm still kind of fighting, and like, I really should use these brushes, but I want to collect them anyways. This is just the perfect between both worlds. And this shape here allows for some contouring along the hollows of the cheek. So if I want to look a little bit more snatched and I need to diffuse it, I can easily go in with this. But I can also use this to deposit the deeper contour. So why don't we use the deeper shade here? I can use the edge of the brush and deposit that deeper bronzer. And then I can go in with this side here to diffuse. It does an excellent job at that. While there's another brush that I would use if I want to get even more detailed, but if I am trying to pack light or I'm just trying to get something done quickly, this is an easy, you just grab this and it could do the job for you. Let me repeat this on the other side here so we match. Moving on to the next set of face brushes, I'm going to hold these up all together because they are of the same composition and they are excellent, just absolutely excellent at handling creams and liquids. I don't think it's a surprise. I have here her entire Fusion set plus the base brush from her Lotus set. I got a tip, and you know who you are. So the tip with this brush, I used to not use it. It was out of all the Lotus set brushes, this is the least used. However, the tip is it does excellent work with cream bronzers, and this is true. So I have been using cream bronzers like Charlotte Tilbury's Sun-Kissed Glow, and I just use that to move the bronzer. It does an excellent job because these brushes, and also same with the Fusion set, is a mix of synthetic fibers and natural hairs. The composition is designed in such a way that it maximizes how the product is placed on your face, how it's diffused, how it's moved. So even if a product may seem initially when you place it on look streaky, go over it a couple of times. It just blends right into your skin, and it is true for the base brush, the jumbo base, the classic base, her soft concealer, her jumbo concealer, and what I love to use the mini base for is cream blush. I love this. Anytime I have cream blushes, this is my go-to. I use this for blending out under eye concealer. If I'm not going in with a sponge, I go with this. This I like to use with cream highlighters, which I've done today using the Westman Atelier Parla, but you can also use this as concealer, and I did do initially touch-ups, but I also use it interchangeably when it comes to touch-up in these areas with this Koyudo brush. We won't get into Koyudo. I do love that little finger brush, but this can do the job. The entire set is excellent, including the base brush from the Lotus set. Between these two, it just depends. When I have liquid and I think I'm looking for a very quick kind of spreading of the liquid, for example with the Le Beige Chanel foundation, I tend to gravitate towards this brush. If I'm using cream foundation like the Westman Atelier Vital Skin or the Merit Minimalist, then I'll go with something smaller, and the buffing motion I use works really well with the creams, I find. Whereas something more emollient, I can spread it faster. I don't think that in terms of coverage, how it looks, and you know, am I getting more coverage if I use this shape rather than this shape? There really isn't a notable difference in my opinion that I've seen in my experience. I do think that if you're trying to get more coverage out of the foundation, the technique to use shorter strokes or like kind of a smaller area buffing and then adding in a little bit more product could achieve that effect rather than the size. Although you could argue that if it's a bigger size, then your motions are going to be bigger and you're going to spread it, which is, yes, I completely agree with that. If you are looking for a brush shape or a type of brush that gives you, that elevates the coverage of your foundation beyond what it's maybe initially designed for, I do have another Koyudo brush that I really like for that, but we'll save it for another video since we're focusing on Sonia G this time around. So that's the Fusion set plus her base brush from the Lotus set. And then for the final favorite Sonia G brush is going to be, I've talked about this brush many times on my channel, it's the face one. It is now called the Rephr Pro. The difference between the Rephr Pro and the face one is the handle. Everything else is the same. So the Rephr Pro will have a handle that looks like this, and the face one has kind of like her original shape of a handle. And her reasoning for changing the Rephr Pro to this tapered handle is to basically, you know, have her brush shapes all match, the handles anyways, all match, to have it tapered. Because this is the only Sonia G brush that has like her OG handle, it has a special place in my heart. I don't know. I mean, it definitely takes up more room when you want to, or when you're storing it. I mean, space is precious once your brush collection starts to like add up. And it takes a lot. I put it in here in this Rephr holder. I mean, in place of this, I could probably put 2 or 3 more brushes, but because of this, it takes a lot of room. Anyways, love this brush. I use it for all over face powder. You can use it for any powders you want to put all over your face, whether it's something with micro glitter or it's just a mattifying powder. Today I use the Westman Atelier Vital Skin Pressed Powder, and it goes on just beautifully. The density, the shape of this is perfect. It's just dense enough to pick up the product that you need, but not so dense that it kind of goes on and feels cakey. In fact, if you have like a thicker loose powder or even pressed powder, like the Westman Atelier one, it always gives you a very even application, which is what makes the shape and design of this brush amazing. Yeah, it just doesn't matter. If you're looking for a very, very good coverage and not feel any tackiness, I always recommend loose powder over packed powder. But I've been using it interchangeably, and it just always gives me a very even application. For areas like this can be kind of tricky, but because around the edges of the brush here, it's very easy to get around to. You can have coverage without worrying about, hey, maybe this is too big. So that is my last favorite Sonia G brush, and it is a staple in my makeup routine. Thank you guys for watching. That was a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I'm certain I missed something. I know I didn't talk about all the different types of hairs these brushes can be made up. And oh, one thing, they are all made in Kumano, Japan, which is a very well-known, famous place in Japan, city in Japan, that makes brushes. And the artisans there are highly trained, highly skilled. The cost of these brushes are quite high because it has to do with the training, the labor involved, and of course the materials. If you have any questions about Fude, if you're new to Fude, leave the questions below. I'll try my best to answer them. And if you are already a collector, let me know which are your favorites. We always have great discussions and conversations whenever I put up a brush video. Looking forward to your comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.